Tips and Tricks webinar. We've got a good group of people on the call. Hopefully we can give you some good information. And just to kind of go over, I think all of you pretty much have been on our webinars already, but just to kind of go over things. If you need to see my screen better, at the top left of your window, you should see kind of a zoom function, and you can go ahead and zoom in or zoom out as you need to on there. If you have any questions during the webinar, you're welcome to go ahead and type them into the questions area. You should see in your GoToWebinar control panel. And basically what we're going to cover today is kind of going over smart views a little bit. We talked to them, we've kind of referenced them in a few of our previous webinars, but we haven't gone over basically how to create them or what some of the functions are, what options you have with them. And we've kind of been working with a couple of customers recently on going through some of this stuff. So we wanted to cover that for everybody and kind of go over, at least at a high level, kind of how to set these up and what some of the options are on them. We also want to go over, hopefully we wind up with time, and we go over job tickets as well. So we'll go over creating job tickets and how to apply those to different functions of the application, like the assets view for the upload or a job ticket and some of the other ones as well. Again, we're going to be doing these monthly. We've been doing these, I think, since May now. And basically second Wednesday of every month, you should count on us having one. We're alternating kind of between ES and Twist, but if anybody has a good suggestion for a webinar topic they would like us to cover, you're welcome to send that and we can cover that as well. So let me get to it because I think we have a lot of ground to cover today. So my ES demo server, I'm going to go ahead and log in.
I don't see anything yet, Fred.
Oh, you don't see anything, Mike? Okay.
No, I don't.
All right. All right, let me reshare the screen and make sure everybody sees anything. Sorry, y'all missed my exciting slide presentation. But, there we go. Let me know if you see that, Mike.
There you go. That's it.
All right.
That's good.
Good. All right, we all missed my exciting slide presentation, but we'll get down to the gravy now. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my ES server here. And first thing we want to talk about is basically, what are the smart views? Smart views are basically customized views into ES that we're allowed to create. And traditionally, especially those of you who are still on ES3 or more used to even ES2, we basically had our customer view, which was, very basic and couldn't be modified much. And for some customers, a bit complex to look at, a lot of functions, a lot of pull-down menus, and didn't have a lot of flexibility. So when they allowed their customers to come in and take a look at ES, they were giving them a bit too much information. It wasn't easy enough for them to work on. So what we gave them is basically a way to create custom views to allow people to see basically the information exactly the way they need to see it. So this is just an example of one where basically we're able to break it down, filter out the information that's being presented to somebody, and show them only what they see and be able to set up the columns as they want or gallery view as they want, and just show them the specific information they need them to see to be able to work in the application, get in and get out as quick as possible. So we also, DALiM's extended that in the file system view that they've given us now, basically, it's the way to create how we see the images or the assets that we see under the asset management view or the file system view. So we have a way to customize exactly what functions we have here as far as full functionality, how we're viewing things, list, and even into the kind of the gallery view of things. So where we customize all of this is under our customization area in the administrative side. Under Smart Views, and we see we already on my demo server, I have a few that we're going to cover a couple of the things on one of these, but I want to go over just creating from scratch just a basic Smart View. So of course you name your Smart View, typically try to stick with a name that is reflective of what you're doing with it, or you can get very confused. Some of these names are all over the place, we don't really know what they do. And you have the ability to create different types of smart views. So you basically say what template it is, and you say whether it's a project smart view, document smart view, or section smart view. So a project smart view will give you certain functions and basically be kind of overall at a project level of what's going on an ES server. Document one, kind of what we've had since ES3. ES3 only had the ability to do document smart views, and it's document specific, so files that are on approval, things that are going on specifically to a file. And now we also have a section smart view that can be applied by sections depending on how you organize your projects inside of ES. Today, for the most part, we're just going to cover the project and document one. The section one is a little bit similar to a project one, just at a different level. So we're going to quickly do a document workflow. The display account of default search results, basically in the smart view, will basically show you how many hits the basic settings of this view get. So you know how many assets you found without any user filtering being applied. So I like to keep that one on because it's nice to see what these are returning. You have a default icon. You're able to actually replace that icon if you want. So if you want an icon that kind of shows you what something specific about the view or lets you identify it easily, you can do it. And so you can upload an icon in there just as you can in your milestones or anything like that. And then go ahead and save that. You kind of have the starting point of your smart view. Underneath that area, you basically have the different elements that can be modified within the smart view. So starting out with columns. Columns is basically what you see when you do a list view inside your smart view. The gallery layout will be what you do when you view the gallery view. Film strip will kind of cover through another one. I'm not going to go over that one here, but film strip is basically in like the asset management view, the film strip on the bottom of the window that lets you add functionality to that. Frame will be actually mimics the regular job area, project area inside of ES on the right-hand side, where it will show you what the validation status is, what metadata exists, and what milestone you're in. Then filters are basically filters you can apply that allow you to filter out the information that's being seen. So whether you want to filter on specific customer information or anything like that to limit your search results back that you're showing to the user. The user filter is actually going to be filters you give the user that he can filter the information after what's been given to him. So if he wants to see only things that are on approval or only active projects, things like that, stuff that we'll go through. The actions area is basically functions that you can put in to perform a function on the files that you find on it. So whether it's go to a file, reject it, approve it, soft proof it, all of those are actions we can add to our interface to allow the people to. These basically quick keys that we can add to perform. View you can add the language for. So go over so just to create a smart view, if we're going to create one, we'll work on the list view part of it. To start with, what we can do is find the metadata over here on the right-hand side that we need to add to it. It's basically the content that we're adding to our smart view. So the DALiM's grouped it where the specific document data, which is the more common information that we want to add to a file, is the top one. And we can do things like maybe I want to see what customer something's for, what project it's for, and all we're doing is just dragging over. And for any of these, you'll see under the ordering, sometimes we have options where we can modify the information displayed. In this case, if not, it allows you to put the sorting order. So that's what you're seeing here with the up arrow, down arrow, is how those are sorted or no sorting at all. Then we can say we want the file name. After that, then all of these are grabbing under specific document data. We also have what DALiM calls widgets. So widgets actually perform a function that's beyond just metadata. For instance, I'm going to drag in my preview. So that'll be a thumbnail of the file. and I can add whether I want to add the icon, color, or revision to it. And I'll actually leave those off right now and then show you the view and go back and show you what those do when it turns on. Basically, it's making it like the regular project view where you're able to see the color of the milestone you're on, the icon at the top that shows you which milestone it is, and what the revision count is. We're also able to do a progression, so we're able to kind of see a progress bar on it as well, and that's just sorted. And some other ones that we'll cover kind of going through some others. But it's just kind of a basic view right now. So if I go ahead and save that one, come out here and go to my Smart Views, you'll see it's actually returned 1,707 files. And right now we just basically have exactly what we asked it for: customer name, project name, the file name, the preview, and the progression bar. Basically, progression bar is how far it's gone through the workflow that it needs to go through, the document workflow. So you see as I scroll through, kind of see files in all kind of different statuses here, and I have a result of 1,700 different files. So obviously I do want to start filtering. But you'll notice these basically, because I had all those three options off, I just have a preview here not showing anything. If I go ahead and turn those back on now, and there we go. So if I go ahead and turn these back on, save and go back to my Smart View, you'll see now we have the green bar at the top showing the icon, and if I had any with revisions on it, you would see the revision count as well. So if we want to go in and add it, the one thing I'd show in that view, that was the only option I had. I didn't have a gallery view because I didn't create an actual gallery view. So if I want to add a gallery view, what we'll do is say, what do I want to see on my gallery view? Gallery view typically is going to have a bit less information than we're going to have on our regular file system, on our regular list view. But maybe we just want to see what the file name is and what project it's for instance. So if we go ahead and save that, come into our view. I chose the brain, so it's actually pretty easy to look at. So now you'll notice at the top I have list, and now I have my gallery view. I can view my gallery, and you'll see it gives me the file name and gives me the project that the file comes from. And we have our bar and everything at the top because I chose those options. And by default, we have the scaling function on there. They've added that, and we also have the kind of film strip view, or the full size view and the split view. Those are just default views that are added. So what I want to do is basically, actually I'll show you the frame functions. So under frame, our options are basically what do I want to show, status, validation, metadata. I'll go ahead and turn those on. I'm going to do a little bit of filtering. Since we're seeing files through all my demo projects and maybe some files that some of our customers have uploaded to our server, we're going to filter the information some and only show files from specific customers. So what I can do is drag in customer name into my filters area. And again, this filters area is information I'm filtering from the user seeing. So they won't have an option here. They're only going to be able to see what I let them see. And I'm going to go ahead and say, well, a webinar customer is one. And if I want to add multiple customers to this, I could just drag on as many as I want and add those to my list. So I know that my other kind of demo area is my customer. And I'm going to only add those two. Go ahead and save that. And in my view now, these files are only the ones for those two customers. And I'll show you where you can actually see that. But you can see now I'm actually returning 378 files instead of the 1,700 files completely. And same thing for in my list view. So you see everything's my customer. And as I go down further, eventually I'll get to my webinar customer here. And now we may be able, want the user themselves to be able to filter a little bit more of that information. So we go to our users filter area, and they may want to actually see, be able to toggle between files on approval or files that, any file, I should say. And maybe they want to toggle between active jobs and non-active jobs. So I'm going to give those two user filters to them. And now when we come in inside my view, I now have two toggle buttons at the top. So I can say, okay, only show me active projects and only show me files that are on approval. Okay, so filtering down the information. And I can add as many of those filters as I want, or I can give them as many filters as I want. Now, we also have the ability to maybe let them filter the customers they're seeing or something like that. There's actually one on the specific document data called hierarchy that I've used before, I've seen used before, but I found a better way to do this. What hierarchy does is actually gives you a list, and let me actually go ahead and put that under user filter, and I'll show you what it does and show you a way to do it a little bit differently. So if I drag hierarchy on there, basically what I'm going to allow the user to do is now he can say, well, I only want to see things for, and one of the problems with the hierarchy is it shows you the full customer list, even though I've filtered the information I'm giving them. But I only want to see things for webinar and only want to see things that are in webinar 2, for instance. So I can kind of go through my projects and filter down that information. A better way I've found of kind of doing this is to basically use the grouping function, for instance, in my list view to group how I'm displaying this information. So if I click on grouping here, it doesn't look like it actually does much, but it brings up this interface and lets you choose basically how you're viewing things. I haven't had much luck with the multi-level grouping turned off. And separator, if multi-grouping is turned on, the separator doesn't do anything. But it's just a way basically to group some of the metadata that you're using here. So for instance, if I add customer name and project name under here as two of the criteria that are grouped together, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this hierarchy setting here. What I'm doing now is actually grouping these and displaying them differently. So everything under my customers grouped together, everything for webinar is grouped together. And if I pull down on webinar, I'll see the project grouped together. So all the files for the specific project are grouped under a certain area. And in this view, you'll actually see better what happens if I turn off active projects, because now I'll actually have additional projects added to the list. And actually turn off this because I have approvals on there. And I'll show you, you now have this webinar 1 and some additional projects in here. And basically, I'm filtering. So even the on approval, if there's no file to approve in a project, it will keep that from actually displaying on the list. So you'll see there's only 3 projects here that have files that have an approval. So I'm able to show that information quickly. So really, it's a matter of kind of determining what you want to see, what you want your users to actually see in the view. Then kind of go through actions, and what you're doing with actions is basically saying what you want to allow them to do. So if I want to let them download the file, I want to allow them to to view it. So if they want to launch dialogue from it, I can do that. And obviously, you have this whole list. Most of them are kind of self-explanatory, even reprocessing the file, so restarting the workflow through it, downloading it, uploading files from it, different things like that, viewing the status view, showing the workflow, so it can kind of do show workflow as well. And any of the ones I add here, I can add as many of them as I want. Then I tell it, where do I want these to show up? So do I want them to show up on the menu, contextually, so right-clicking, whether I'm going to show the icon for it. Do I want to see the icon in my interface? Which one is default action? Default action is what happens when you double click. So you can make one of them the default action. And then the shortcut is basically the quick key to get to it. So, Control D to download, S to view, and W, those are defaults that come with it. If you want to change those, you can change those in the interface. Then you also have basically, you can build a menu system. So I could say this is going to be under my file menu. This is going to be under my edit menu. And this will be under an edit menu. So I'm creating basically what that view is going to look like. So now if I come in here, basically I've added the icons here, so if I select a file, I'm able to download it there. I'm able to view it here, and I'm able to show the workflow there. And if I double click one of these files, since it's my default action, opens it in dialog. And that's kind of quickly how you kind of build the interface. You'll see here where I can now have the file download and edit is view and show workflow. So I'm also able to do that. And since I said it's contextual, I can right click and do any of those functions in the file as well. So I'm just basically building a GUI. So you can plan out how you want the GUI to look and then have it basically do what you need it to do. The last one is macros. Macros, and I'm actually going to go to my DAM smart view here and show you what kind of the macros look like. So basically, for instance, my ratings. So to be able to do a ranking or a rating on an image, I'm able to just use my shortcut of 0, and it enters the 0 through 5 value, 0 through 5 on my shortcut. I can make those shortcuts whatever I wanted to, for instance. So my selection process on approval, which is 0, 1, 2 is the value. So this is basically the setting that we're setting the metadata at, and this is how we're setting it, hitting N for none, S for select, or R for reject, basically, just using those quick keys when I select a file. So that's kind of how to create the macro of what you want to do with the metadata. So very quickly, so we used our interface here to build kind of a look, and you can kind of get very creative in what you want to do, but I'll show you kind of what one would look like that's a project workflow. So this is for a project level, and again, using some of the widgets that DALiM provides. I'm actually using this the milestone bar that DALiM gives us. And the milestone bar will actually show us the project workflow in it. What we'll see here, a couple of these widgets and things that we have on a more complicated view, is there's actually properties define what the functionality of that object is actually going to do. So we can say, what is our orientation? Do I want it horizontal or vertical? You see, it'll actually show me the difference of how it's going to display my views. So it'll give me kind of a preview showing me what the differences are. Do I want it to show me the icon, or do I want me to show you color and a number? So basically just which milestone is it by count instead of showing me the graphical icon. The smart zoom is basically so that this function will scale when you scale the previews. Key proportion will make it not square versus keeping the shape of what your icon is. Removing the border or showing the border, just showing what the differences are there. How do we want to display our used milestones, for instance? And I'm running long on time, so I'm kind of quickly going through these. But we have a bunch of functions that allow us to kind of modify how something's going to behave. So in the project workflow, what we can do quickly is kind of go through and and show you what's viewable from a project milestone. So we can kind of go in here, go to our webinar 2 one, and I've had issues with that milestone bar kind of showing up the first time as it's drawing all this data. And I'll filter down that data a little bit. So you will see it. So here's my kind of my workflow view that I've put on there, and any other information we want to see from a project. But it's kind of a nice view because it shows us where the project is as far as status goes, and would actually allow us to see all the milestones that have been achieved, if it's at a given milestone for the project, all from a view like this where we're able to see all the projects together. So kind of quickly going through it, who's up for approval can be shown on there by adding the approvals. So we can really modify how we want to see this and give a nice dashboard view outside of the regular dashboard that DALiM provides, and customize it and make it look exactly like what we need it so that our CSR, whoever wants to look at this data, can. An interesting one they've added is now social media. So we're able to have a social media icon. So for instance, if I wanted to share this out to Facebook, I would just click on Facebook, and it's actually going to give me a URL, an ES4 that I can post to my timeline inside of Facebook or my company's timeline inside of Facebook. And depending on what I wanted to share in my configuration, I can actually tell it I want to actually share a PDF or the actual file itself. So if I go into my social media and edit properties, say it's a PDF download, so they'll just download the PDF, or ES view. So if I'm doing this at a project level, so the ES view will actually be a view of the HTML5 virtual book, for instance, if you're doing a publication of the project, and be able to kind of go through that and do approvals and everything through there. So you can do that straight through social media and tell it which social media icons you want to show them or not. So that's kind of quickly going through some of the smart views. I'm going to jump to job ticket and try to get through a good bit of it as well. So again, job ticket is just a customizable function that allows us to add specific job ticket data to different areas of the application. So if I go ahead and make a new one, for instance, you'll see the first thing that's going to happen when you make a new job ticket is going to ask you for the name. It's going to ask you for description, so you can give it a description so you know what it does. Global allows you to define it whether this job ticket is across every customer and everyone is going to see it. If you turn it off, you have to actually add it to a customer's template, for instance, or to an approval. And I'll kind of hopefully try to go over those in the next 10 minutes or so. You're able to do this where it's metadata, or you can actually have a smart ticket for parameter set. We're going to stick on metadata for this function. Then you can say what that job ticket is for. For instance, is this for a document? Is it for a project? It can be for more than one if you want it to. For instance, we're just going to do a project for right now. So I want it to apply on my customer. So when I create a customer, do I want to add specific metadata to the customer field? Upload, approval, and I kind of go over some of these in the time that I have. First thing that we do is we're able to set up, even at this level, we're able to set up how many rows and how many columns our job ticket is. Because what we're doing here is basically building an interface, a GUI, for our job ticket. And once we create it, and I typically, although I've stuck with kind of simpler job tickets, I typically go by one, and I actually use my objects to create what the view is going to look like. So for instance, and just to show you what the objects do, the objects are used in the creation of what the GUI is going to look like. So the first thing I can drag on is a field set, for instance, and I can say maybe this field set is 4 by 4. So I have 4 areas of entry that I can put in metadata into these. If I wanted to make one of these areas even more complicated, I could add a table layout inside of it. So I'm dragging the table layout into it. Now I can say, well, this one, this part of my GUI is going to be 2 by 2. So I have this little 2 by 2 area here and all the other information there, and I'm kind of just building this out. Any of the fields we drag in here, we can put our specific label on if we want some kind of descriptive area of what it is. A lot of times this is just like I will put the name of what the actual job ticket is at the top, and then maybe one of these will be defined for what the metadata is that's going in there. So I can do labels, customize for that, or I can actually drag a label on, so I can add any one of these areas be a label. So I'm creating a label of that. A new function, and I haven't really used this, but you're also able to do a call URL. So basically call URL just allows you to sit there and put a URL. It's basically a button that will launch a website from your GUI. I'm not sure if I've ever thought of a function for it, but you can do that and put that inside of your GUI. But then you can also do start workflow. So you can have it like if it was at a document level or something and you have a workflow set to manually start, you can put a start workflow on there and it'll automatically take the files and send them to a specific workflow. Then basically what you're doing inside your GUI is you're building and putting any metadata that you want inside of these areas. So for instance, if I just wanted to look at my regular components and I wanted to list a project name, I can put the project name, drag it into one of those. And one thing I'll do is I'm actually going to drag a couple in here, and let's see, approvers, for instance, or maybe I want to get application-specific information, description, whatever it is. I can drag these on here, and you can always preview what your interface is starting to look like. So if that would have come up, I think some of these are kind of off. Let's see if I can get the preview right. Let me go to one that I've kind of built before. So just to show you. So you're able to quickly see kind of what it's looking like, and this actually shows something of kind of, and actually let me go to a different one that has a little bit more. This is going to show kind of why you preview and why we build things sometimes we do. If you notice, I have 3 different pieces of metadata here, file type, resolution, and page number, and they're not aligned very well. So if you want to do alignment, what you can actually do is take the same type of information, and if I remember where I grabbed those from, file type and resolution, it's probably on the DALiM core. Bear with me 1 second while I find these. I always forget where some of this stuff is. Mike, you remember offhand? File type.
I was going to say exif for the resolution, but I'm sure the file type isn't under there.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused myself, but let me pull up one that's actually already done, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here.
I see type under there.
This is better, because I always get lost. I mean, there's so many metadata fields, sometimes it's hard to remember where some of this came from. But what I wanted to show is basically, if you look at this area, where you basically have header text, footer text, and then the actual metadata that you're putting in here, you can actually split those into separate areas so that when you actually view them, they're actually aligned nicely. And you do those basically by just dragging the same information, the same metadata set into each area, and clicking the little, kind of looks like a little recycle thing. You just click it to toggle between what you want to show. That was the view we had before, where it was showing both. If I click it again, it just shows me the name of it, and if I click it again, it shows me the actual metadata. So we're quickly able to kind of lay out a look exactly like we want, preview that, and kind of show what it's going to look like inside of the interface. So we can kind of do that. And to kind of go over a couple of different ones that we have and how we apply those, for instance, we're going to create one I'm going to use at a folder level. The way, if I'm not doing global, because I don't want this to show for everybody's folder, I only want to show it for one customer, for instance, I have global off, and under the customer, so under my webinar customer, in their template area, when I modify their default template, and this would only be when they're using that default template, you have this layouts tab in here, and you can add any of the job tickets that you want under here. Now, these will apply specifically only to the area they need to apply. So for instance, I have this webinar folder one. It will apply to any subfolder in a project for this customer webinar. The webinar upload one will apply to all the upload windows. So whenever they're uploading a file to one of their projects with the default template, it will show my webinar upload smart ticket. So basically, so you can add as many of them here as you want to whatever areas of the customer you want to add that job ticket. Okay, so just to kind of go back over that, if I look at my webinar upload window, for instance, I see in my upload one, I basically have file type, resolution, page number, and what I wanted to cover under this is rules really quickly. So under rules, what we're able to do is filter out how we want to present that information. So maybe if you notice my metadata here, I have file type, resolution, page number. Resolution only makes sense for images, and page number only makes sense for pages, for instance. So what I want to do is only show resolution when I have pages selected as my file type, images selected as my file type, and I only want to show page number when I have the page is selected. So what I'm able to do is add information here that'll actually do that. So you add it by clicking on the plus sign. You can add as many of these as you want. And what I'm basically saying is this one's active, and my action is I want to show this piece of metadata when I meet certain criteria. I have the ability also to say that it's required if I meet criteria or don't meet criteria, hide it, disable it, enable it, whatever I want to choose. I'm going to say my target type is metadata in this instance, or I can do specific object. And the metadata I want to affect is my resolution. And now when I edit this, I hit the edit button there, I can say, when do I want to show resolution? And I want to show it basically when this layout webinar upload, and I can choose this. Actually could pull information from different layouts if you needed to. So if you had multiple job tickets, you could pull information from a different job ticket, and you're saying basically, this is from this job ticket, file type. If it equals image, I want to show resolution. And if it equals page, I want it to show page number. So what that does is basically I'm creating very quickly just a little interface for my upload. So if I'm inside of a project for this customer webinar and I choose it, you'll see my job tickets down here. This was one from the previous demo. You'll see I only see file type at first, and if I choose image, now I see resolution, and I can say it's a high res or low res image I'm sending to it. You know, whatever you're doing inside your job tickets. So you're able to modify it. Instead of showing a bunch of fields that may not always need to get filled out, you're able just to show the ones that need to based on what that is coming in. And that's metadata I'm going to add to my file. Let's see, quickly, we're running out of time very quickly. So see what else I can show. Basically, just let me go over anything. So basically, the other one that we should probably cover real quickly is approval. And if I look at my select digital edition approval, for instance. So this is just a job ticket we did real quick to choose basically what special edition needs to go down a certain branch of the workflow. So I can click on whatever digital edition I want, and it'll follow that in the workflow. But what I want is, since I never know what's going to do it, is I want this to be done in an approval ticket. Obviously, this can be done in a job ticket as well, but in this case, what we said, this was actually one that's going to be done at an approval milestone. So if I choose approval, and again, it's not global, and in fact, in this case, it can't be global. The other place I need to modify is under my workflows and my specific milestone. I can select an approval milestone, and which one is that? It's release, select. I always forget what this is. Yeah, wait for digital edition selections. So this milestone is can be basically set up as a must be approved, and then I select the approval layout under here that's available to me to display when it reaches that milestone. So I'm just saying that the milestone needs to be approved, and then whatever job tickets I have that are set up as approvals will show up here and select edition, and I could do one for rejection if I wanted to as well, if it's being rejected. But in this case, it was just to select what I want and then continue, basically, is what my milestone is. And then if I select that, I have to actually say which user is actually going to do that, which role is going to do that. So, you know, whatever one I would select here, and actually approve a summary. So I could say my approver is going to fulfill that role. And then whoever in my job ticket I put as the approver would basically be able to fulfill that role. And here when I go there, there's my job ticket, and allow me to choose it before I move on, validate it, and continue with the workflow. So that's how those work, and there was a lot of information to kind of squeeze in, kind of running up against it. Wanted to cover any questions really quickly than I could. I did have a couple on here, so one of the questions was basically, you know, we've noticed basically in the past that DALiM has always shipped ES with just a couple of default smart views, one being resource load, one is the dashboard view. And I don't even remember now if there was another one, but those are the two basic ones, and they really haven't shipped other ones. We've kind of transported them. You're able to use data import and exporting to bring them in, but apparently in what should have been this build, but apparently it won't be till a future build. In the next couple of releases, they're actually going to include some in the data import setting. And actually, let me log in as an administrator real quick, and I'll show you the area I'm talking about. So in the data import area, there's going to be a DALiM category basically here, and there'll be some default smart views that you'll be able to select and import if you want to use them. So they will be moving towards shipping some nice cleaned up smart views and job tickets as well eventually. So another question we have is about basically documentation. The documentation, the ES manual does cover a lot of what the widgets and the different objects can do. All of them aren't necessarily covered, but it's decently documented. You know, they have added a lot of them in the past few builds, so they haven't kept up completely. But I think up to the official version of ES, it is kind of up to date, and most of them are covered. Obviously, you know, any specific metadata that you've created is in there as well. So you know, there's a long list of stuff that you can add, but the basic ones, the document ones, and the application ones, and widgets are pretty much covered. And then the last question looks like we have is how can I force someone to a specific smart view? And I actually should have covered this. Under basically, we control what smart views people have access to by their profile. So the profile that they come in as defines which smart views they have access to, and basically just under the settings area on the smart views, you can turn off smart views where they don't have access to them, or turn on the ones you want them to have access to. But you also have under user profile default function, so I can set a specific smart view for them to go into. So now if I log in as my HTML5 profile, it should take me into directly, and I'm glad I didn't hit return like I usually do. And it should take me right into kind of my demo view smart view. So it takes me directly there, forces me just to that view. And then one other question just came in. Let's see if I can see what this whole question is. Does the grouping menus work in the gallery view as well? I believe it should, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Mike? It does work in the gallery view, doesn't it?
I think so. I think it.
Oh no, actually no, you're right. I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think it is in the gallery view. Let's take a look at that.
Yeah, it's column list view only. Yeah,
because it's listed in there. Yeah. Let's just go there. Yeah, because you'll notice groupings here. There's no grouping here.
Yeah.
So unfortunately not, because it is. I really like the grouping function as a way to organize the information instead of using hierarchy, but it's not available.
Another question. This was one last one. It was. I don't think you showed this. It was, can you approve or reject directly from a smart view without having to open a file?
Directly from a smart view?
Right.
Yes.
It's a file.
Yeah. If you go to a smart view, basically, and you go to your actions, approval is one of the actions that you can put on. So approve, or I could drag reject in here as well. Drag reject in, so I'm approving, rejecting, and now if I go into my demo view, and you'll see my approve and reject buttons up here.
Okay.
So if I select a file, I can approve that. And that file's approved. So yeah, so any of those actions could be done in there, you know, selection, approval, rejection, soft proofing. Everything you can do inside of the regular interface of ES can be done there. And I think there was one more. There was a question about the contact sheet.
Yeah, the question on the contact sheet was, can you actually show what a file looks like when that contact sheet job ticket is being used? I think what the questioner or the person is asking is, you know, you showed how to set up the interface for it, but what does it really look like when you're using it on a real file? I think
sure.
That's what
yeah, I feel like what Mike's talking about, and we'll kind of finish up on that, is you know, this is the contact sheet site, and where that's actually used, if you look at this, it's actually global, and this is one I didn't cover, so this is a good one to finish up on. This is set up as a workflow template, basically. So this is going to act on a workflow, and what we have to do for it to work on a workflow is when we go to our specific workflow we're calling. So in this case, it was, I think, make contact sheet. You notice in your workflows, and this is something that hasn't been covered much, you do have a workflow layout option when you make your workflows. You can select which job ticket is actually going to be used for that. So I can say contact sheet there, for instance. Go ahead and save that. So now when I'm calling this workflow, it's going to pull up this job ticket automatically. And I'm trying to think about the easiest way to show this, because basically what I have to do is apply that to, in this case what we're doing is applying it to an action. So it's something we've covered in another webinar. Something that's new is specific options, specific actions. So we can create actions to add to our action menu in the job ticket, or in the smart view, for instance. So contact sheet, creating a contact sheet, and I'm telling it which workflow, that make contact one. So it's just a little bit convoluted, you know, kind of different moving pieces. What I'm creating is an action for it, and that action I can call inside of my smart view. So the smart view in this case that I have actually that uses it is the one I use for my, hopefully it's still there. This is the one I use for my images, for instance. So if I select a bunch of images here, and go ahead and select a few of them here, and I go ahead and make my contact sheet. So this is an action I've added to this smart view, make contact sheet. When I call it, because I'm calling that workflow, it's pulling up that job ticket. So it pulls up the job ticket, so I'm able to fill out the job ticket and say, well, I want 3 rows by 4 rows. I want the title to be demo. I want the header text to be header, whatever it is. I'm not very creative. And hit OK, and it's going to go ahead and make that contact sheet. So that's how some of the functions that we're adding inside of here are actually going to go to making things, you know, full functions, full actions inside of ES as well. So there's my contact sheet that I made based off of that. It's called demo, and there's my header text on there. So hopefully that covered it, and hopefully we got to all your questions. If not, what I'll do is actually I'll follow up and send you a specific email to answer your question. As always, we've recorded this session, so the recording will go out in the thank you email that goes out tomorrow, as well as we'll post it on our YouTube channel. If you look for Blanchard Systems on YouTube, you'll see all of our previous videos as well, along with other videos that we post. So again, thanks for joining us today. Any ideas for webinars for next month? We'd be happy to take those into consideration, and I hope everybody